Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our Fire Relief Fundraiser. We've got 7 great companies that are going to present today and also help out some of the communities that have been affected this summer by terrible wildfires. And so next up, we have Tara Christie, CEO of Banyan Gold, who's a company that we know well, but haven't actually had an update from for a while. I think even since you put out your latest resource, we haven't had you on for a webinar. So
yeah, it's been
some exciting times. First off, thanks for supporting the fundraiser. I know you do a lot for communities in and around the Maui region and all across the country. So appreciate that. Just as a reminder for anyone that's participating, you can put questions in and we'll get to those at the end. It'll be about a 20-minute presentation followed by Q&A. And as always, forward-looking statements, even if Tara's not using a presentation.
I do have a presentation.
And now I'll let you talk.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Really appreciate it. And I'm really excited to talk about Banyan. It's near to our heart, this fundraiser. Yukon had its own share of fires this year. And of course, the Eagle Mine was evacuated. And as luckily nothing was damaged and it's back on track. And the community of Maui near us was evacuated. And we ended up helping out on some of the clearing lines with bulldozers and things like that. And we were really fortunate in the Yukon, but, my donation was to the NWT because other Northerners, I really felt that it's a great cause and we feel for them. So thanks for doing that, Deborah. I really appreciate it. And it motivated me to come and talk to you. So
yeah, perfect. Well, we're due for an update. I think it's a great time kicking off, the fall season. So why don't you dig in and give us a bit of an overview of what you've been up to over the last year?
Great. Well, just, our project area right there, main highway through it, power line right to the hydroelectric dam, which is only 50 kilometers away. Nice, moderate topography, no steep mountains, no glaciers, no big rivers right there. You're looking at our project where there's 6 million ounces and you can stand there and even have 4 bars on your cell phone and fiber optic cable out to Victoria Gold's mine there, which is the road in the foreground. So, infrastructure is super important. It's important for your capital costs and cost of the build. It's important for your long-term operational costs. And it's also important for permitting, being in an area that already has existing infrastructure. So I will be making forward-looking statements because I'm really excited about this project and where we are in the Yukon. This map, you can see where Victoria Gold is, 25 kilometers as the crow flies. Hecla moved in right beside us. A year ago yesterday, actually, was the closing of the transaction. So we've seen them be very, very busy there and also very, very busy purchasing AdCap, which was a gold property, gold properties. So we know that Hecla's not only interested in the silver mine that they purchased, but also more broadly in the Yukon. So very interesting to have 2 mines that are trying to grow and will likely be looking for additional resources right beside our Aurmac property. And I'm not going to show the whole video because I've seen it before, but Yukon's pretty exciting. This belt, this Tombstone intrusive belt and these intrusion-related deposits. Remember, we made our Powerline discovery in 2019, and it's not something that's been around for a long time. We have Snowline out to the east making more intrusion-related discoveries, really bringing in more investment from other mining companies and Yukon's been put on the map with Victoria Gold building a mine, showing that heap leaching works here, even with some of the challenges that have happened, along with, the discoveries that are being made. If you drew a circle around us of 50 kilometers, there'd be 18 million ounces in gold equivalent resources. That's district. And, similar to how the Golden Triangle or Red Lake, you start with one mine and a few resources and you find more. And quite frankly, I think this is very underexplored. Our Aurmac property there, 173 square kilometers, our Nitra property out to the west, really towards where Sitka is, and Victoria Gold's Clear Creek. There you can see the resource that we put out, 6.2 million ounces. Remember last year we had 4 million. We drilled 50,000 meters, came back with these 3 deposits, increased in size, with Powerline having the bulk of the growth, now closer to 4 million ounces. And since we put out this resource, those of you that have been following us saw that this season we've drilled 25,000 meters, not kilometers, of drilling. 107 holes. We've released some holes which show that Powerline and Aurex Hill are contiguous. We've linked those two in mineralization. So in future resource updates, we'll see that, as well as we've drilled and expanded to Aurex Hill to the east, as well as far east, as well as putting some holes in this important part of Powerline, which we call South Powerline, where when we originally made the discovery, we only drilled, up to 100-meter holes because we're just testing an idea, and now went back and we know we can add a lot of ounces by drilling that deeper into what we know is a higher grade trend through there. So pretty exciting. This video is on our website and our YouTube channel. So if you want to look at it and get more information, you can see it there. So where are we? Why invest in Banyan? Well, we've taken... it's basically been 3 years from when we had no resource in 2019 to now 2023 having 6.2 million ounces, where we're at that scale where we think we have a really exciting asset. And beyond that, we know we have room to grow it. That resource, we've grown it with our drilling this year, and we have considerable untested exploration targets on our broader property, some of which we finally got around to doing some soil sampling and rock sampling and are continuing to do that for about another week in the field here. So look for lots of news flow as those results come back. We've got a really strong team and supportive shareholders. That's been really important to our success. You'll see us add to our team in a few key areas as we start to move this forward. That's really important. But that location and infrastructure can't be underestimated from a cost and capital cost and a long-term operating cost. We've seen mining companies all around the world have had challenges with operating costs. And when you have infrastructure, it helps in that. It helps with your permitting pathway. And we're different than other Yukon stories. People think of the Yukon and think, the winter, it's cold and dark. You can't operate. But because we're not flying, we have that reliable infrastructure to be able to drive and to safely operate. We're year-round. And we know Victoria Gold and Hecla operate year-round. So that's good for our shareholders in terms of having year-round catalysts, as well as for exploration to move this forward very quickly. And it means that we can start drilling almost any time of the year and successfully execute a program. And really importantly, today we have around $9 million in the bank after executing a $10 million program. It means we're funded for 2024 for both an exploration program, which we haven't yet defined, and also for our metallurgy and technical work, some of which is going on now and through the fall. So look for lots of news flow from Banyan as we really use that money to best advance this project for our shareholders. We've had lots of investments in the Yukon, B2 and Snowline, Newmont and Agnico and Kinross have all made long-term investments in the Yukon as well. There's lots of people, Lundin making the investment in Fireweed. It's an exciting jurisdiction and it's getting lots of attention. In terms of our team, we have a great management team, as well as all the key aspects from mining engineer, capital markets, legal. Brad Thrall joined us and is really integral to helping us with our very robust metallurgical program, which is underway, and Jason Neal. So, we've got a lean and mean team, but all the skill sets that we need. We're pretty fortunate to have great shareholders, and part of that financing in December that we did is responsible for leaving us with a strong treasury. Victoria Gold at 11.3% really validates, I think, the company technically, but it's not a large blocking position. There's still room for others to look at Banyan, Franklin at 9.8%, and Fidelity. Great shareholders came in December at 7.4%, and a pretty significant institutional shareholding at 31%, and we're continuing to grow that, particularly right now where we're seen as pretty good value. Got a couple analysts that cover us. For those of you that would like to see another opinion, Cormark, Richard Gray covers us. His price target's $1.55. Paradigm, Don Blythe, his price target's 85 cents. So it certainly is a time when we're not seeing a lot of interest in gold companies, but I think that'll change, and how we're positioning our Aurmac asset, I think, will bring lots of excitement as we go through the fall. There's just, again, that resource. The yellow holes are the ones that we've released. The yellow and the red drill holes are all post-resource, so they will be additive to that 6.2 million ounces. All the results from the red drill holes are still pending, so 69 holes still to come this year, and lots of areas over here, particularly as we grow Aurex Hill. What we really know about this deposit is that it starts on surface. It's a near surface deposit. You can see there's clear zones of higher grade right near surface, the purple being the highest grade and red being second highest grade. So some of the work that we're now doing internally, now that we have the resource and also getting some engineering support is where's the higher grade, where are the starter pits, where are the real mining pits? And that goes hand in hand with the work that we're doing on metallurgy, on recoveries, and helps us define, understand where the economic projects will be and where our next drilling phases will be. And we're encouraged that there's higher grade from looking at the sensitivity charts. If we'd picked a 0.2 cutoff, and people ask, well, why did you pick 0.2 and 0.3 for your cutoffs? Well, that's typical heap leach grade. And further in the presentation, I have some typical heap leach projects and what their cutoff grades are. And you can also get that off our website. But if we'd have picked 0.5, you'd see that at Powerline alone, there still would be 2.5 million ounces at a grade of 0.95. And across all three deposits, that is 4.5 million ounces at 0.95. Now, does it hang together? Is it mineable? Those are all things we need to work out. But, it leads you to ask some questions. Is there an area, number of ounces plus a gram or a gram and a half, which can be mined up front? It lets you start to think about how you could optimize this project and where we should be investing our next drilling dollars when we decide to drill again. We connected Aurex Hill and Powerline with some great results. We know they're contiguous. We can see it. We also put out results this week showing that deeper area at Powerline where we know it's contiguous. And these holes will also help us understand what it's going to take to move up the resource to higher confidence levels, give our QP even more understanding of how this deposit is and how continuous it is. And so far, we've seen it's remarkably continuous. So for 2023, we executed our $10 million, 25,000 meter program on budget, on time. Our goals were pretty clear to connect Aurex Hill and Powerline. We successfully did that. We know we've added ounces in South Powerline. Expanded Aurex Hill. We'll see some ounce growth there as well. We did step out, want to test some of the deposit edges because we will, as we move forward, want to look for where you can put infrastructure to show how this project could be developed. And then that regional exploration will give us an exciting story about what the other potential on the property is. So looking forward in 2023, we got lots of work to do. The technical work that we've got ongoing, really digging deep into that resource model and some of the other aspects, the robust metallurgical program that I'll speak to again on the next slide, and that regional exploration. And we are funded for both drilling and exploration for 2024. People say, well, are you going to do a phase 2 drill program this year? Well, I'm going to see what we get for results. In this market, having a strong treasury is important for our shareholders. It's also important that we get that metallurgical results back and we understand what we've already drilled. There's no point rushing off without all your results from the year to get out drilling again. We really want to optimize how we spend those drill dollars. So, and we have optionality because our project's road accessible. We have all winter camps. We can make that decision whenever we want to. Metallurgy is super important. Up front, we did the bottle rolls on pulps and came back with that 90% recovery, showing it's amenable to cyanide. And now we've engaged with Brad Thrall to help us do a real robust metallurgical program far beyond, what you do at the initial stages as a junior, looking at all the range of options from heap leaching to other potential improvements in process, like what is gravity, what other things can be used to recover, to mill and CIL recovery, so we know what they are. And people say, well, does that mean you don't think it'll leach? Well, we know what Victoria Gold's leach recoveries are, but we also know that mill recoveries are typically higher. And if you have some higher grade core areas, the economics might be that the mill's a better option depending on what the recoveries are. And we also know that there are some companies looking at this jurisdiction whose preference would be to build a mill. So having that range of options and understanding what the test work tells you, and the test work will drive the economics, which will tell you what the project is. So that's all ongoing. We're pretty pleased with the progress we're making to date. And we've plan for that work to be mostly completed by fourth quarter and have a flow chart for our shareholders and to tell people what the best options are for this project. Permitting is something that, we're well ahead of the game, and it's not something usually juniors start talking about at this, but we have quite an advantage in that we have 2 permitted mines beside us. And as part of our property deal, we got all the data that they had for baseline, and they share our watersheds. We're right close to them. So a lot of it's applicable to our property. So one of the things that we're doing, and we started our own baseline on what we thought the gaps were back in 2021. And you usually need 3 years of data going into permitting. But this is millions of dollars of data and years of time. That's a huge advantage for us. So we're doing some work on that because corporates and others looking at the jurisdiction. This is pretty exciting. You could see you could permit this in a fairly aggressive timeline because of that existing baseline data. Also, the fact that we have roads, we're close to power. We've got one settled First Nation that works with 2 other mining companies, so understands mining. Those are all pretty important advantages, along with being in a brownfield with existing roads. This market's been a little tough for mining companies, or particularly gold. We currently are trading a little bit under where we were trading at $12.50 per ounce. I think we're down to about $8 and maybe a little higher today. But, our peers are generally trading around $30 per ounce. So I think we've got a lot of room to re-rate and show that there's value in this project. As a heap leach, I won't belabor this because I want to get to some questions with Deborah. We're same kind of grade, scale, cutoff grades as other comparable heap leach projects. But we are rare. We're at the top end of the curve in terms of having a very large deposit. There aren't very many in North America that have the scale of deposit that we have. So that's important. When people are trying to add ounces to their book, they're looking for safe jurisdictions that are permittable with the scale of resource that's significant to them. Our exploration, the pink areas are where we know there's intrusions. We haven't seen them mineralized yet, but our soils and our rocks that we've collected this year will give us a bit better idea. And the yellow areas are areas we think are prospective based on historic and modern placer mining, soil anomaly, structural analysis. So we find we've had a bit of time to work on some of these exciting regional targets. This is a district here, spanning from Sitka to Snowline. There's definitely, and with Victoria Gold in the middle, these intrusion-related deposits occur throughout the belt. ESG side super important, and doing this fundraiser today is part of being part of the community and helping out. We've got our charity, Every Student Every Day, that we've run. I ran before I became the CEO of Banyan, and certainly doing lots of great work with that, with First Nations and communities all across the Yukon. But for Banyan, that's important because we're well known and we have visibility in the community. And you can see that we've been doing well on the environment and the ESG side from the fact that we have a very robust permit good through 2028, which will allow us to really advance this project very, very rapidly. And green power with hydropower, all of the corporates, that's a real selling point, having ability to connect to the grid just because of their own ESG reporting requirements. So it's been a pretty short journey. I became the CEO in 2016. We had no resource until 2020. And then 3 years later, we have 6.2 million ounces. So it's been pretty rapid growth. We're now really focused on de-risking this. There's a lot of value that we can add through the fall and into next year, really showing the economics and the aspects of this project that we haven't had time to delve into. And yes, even understanding where the isograds are and understanding heat flow directions and where the intrusions might be that created this. And certainly you'll hear some more on that as we continue into the fall. So we've worked hard to strategically position Banyan and Aurmac. This is a really unique project in a tier 1 jurisdiction, which you can permit with existing infrastructure, existing baseline data. We got 2 mines beside us that at some point we'll want to grow and probably be competitors. Got a great valuation right now for shareholders coming into the story and year-round exploration potential. Our exploration cost is $7 per ounce. So, even at our current valuation, we're still adding value. And very strong shareholder support in treasury. Our burn rate's pretty low, so we're able to really maximize how we spend those dollars and at the time that works to add value for our shareholders. Meanwhile, we're going to have lots of catalysts. We've got drill results coming. We've got regional exploration results coming. We know the deposit's open and our drilling will continue to demonstrate that. We've got the work that we're doing to de-risk the project, specifically the metallurgy, I think will be an important catalyst for us. Building our team as we move working towards our PEA and really advancing this project with some studies in the future. But this is an exciting jurisdiction. I think that you've seen investment and significant intention and appreciation of the value of other other companies in this district, and I think Banyan will get the benefit of that as well. And it's pretty important to be funded for exploration into 2024. So, that's the main story, Deborah, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, sure. Let's start with the balance sheet, which, as you referenced, was really strong. How do you intend to use or reserve your cash given current market conditions while still maintaining forward momentum?
So, we'll continue on with our metallurgical programs and other work. So by the end of December, we'll probably have about $8 million, which still will leave us enough money for a significant exploration or technical program next year, as well as all our G&A. We haven't set our 2024 budget yet. We really want to get our results back. And in the right market, we have the optionality to be able to do more work in exploration this year. But we need a bit of time to do some of the technical work and even just understand what we've already drilled.
Got it. And you appear to have found additional resources at higher grade that might be amenable to milling. How does this change your development and future production outlook, if at all?
Well, it absolutely does. And that's why we're doing that modeling work of the resource, looking at the engineering. And that's why we're doing the metallurgy across the full spectrum of heap leach to mill. Typically heap leach recoveries, let's use Victoria Gold, 74%, but, 60 to 80 is kind of a range. 80 would be high, but, milling can be 90, 95%. And depending on how large your deposit is and how the higher grade hangs together. And, that's kind of the things that you have to take into consideration, because that recovery gap can be very significant. And yes, there's a capital cost gap, but you can run the numbers on that once you have all the data and understand, what the better project is.
I'd love to know if your plans next year are to continue to expand resources or further define them, but it sounds like I'm going to have to wait until later in the season when you have some of your results back for you to answer a question like that.
Well, we've already added ounces, right? We've drilled 25,000 meters. We know we've added ounces, and the upside potential is still there. You can see the deposits open from our models online, and the 3D model as well as the section. So with the market reward adding additional ounces right now, I don't think at the present time they really would. Even if you're adding 10 or 20,000 ounces with a hole, it's to a resource. Once you're at 6.2 million ounces, what's a significant amount? So it's a good question. I ask myself that every day.
Doesn't seem like the market rewards much. Maybe just great discovery holes. That's about it, I think. So you obviously have a very large resource at a great project. So walk us through what the next steps would be in terms of technical studies, economic studies, things like that, in order to advance towards permitting and production.
Sure. So in the Yukon, in order to go into the pre-submission process of the environmental assessment, you need at least a PEA. Better to have a feasibility study or pre-feasibility study. Our property earning agreement, we are required to do a PEA by December of 2025. So other than that, I wouldn't put a timeline on when we're going to do the PEA. We're going to do all the groundwork now. Everything from, we're looking at what geotechnical work we need to do to support, pit slopes. We're looking at, where the areas are, which are potentially, phase 1, phase 2 of a potential mine plan. So you could understand if there's areas we need to drill off to really optimize that, understand where the higher grade is. So it's kind of a bit of iterative work that we're doing now on the studies in advance of even launching into a PEA. So baseline work, we've got a huge amount of data and we've already started that. So we will be doing a gap analysis on that, on what the missing data that we need. Some of that we're going to start this fall. Some of that we'll plan kind of a best case scenario to go fast for 2024 and a kind of more of a base case. And we always do that. When we're planning, you like to be able to be responsive to the market. I think in this environment, any CEO needs to respond to what's happening out there and what their shareholders are thinking and what they're going to get rewarded for, and either speed up or slow down in response to that. So people ask, why don't you just go drill? Well, if the market's not going to reward it, that's not a good use of my share, even if I know I'm adding ounces and it's actually adding value to the project. So, that's partly what my job is to decide. And they're hard decisions because the markets, in June, I would have told you a totally different thing. But now, I I know we are going to add a lot of value that the work that we're doing, and we can turn on the drilling, but having a little bit more time just is going to make that even more effective when we do decide to get back to drilling.
Mm-hmm. I have an audience question for you, which is both Keno and Victoria have had difficulties starting up. What has Banyan learned from these issues for potential mine build?
Well, there's a lot of technical things that we've learned from Victoria specifically. A little bit less, from Alexco, they needed underground miners, and that was very difficult. So and was very challenging to staff that. So that's not applicable to us, and some of their ground condition issues and other things that have been challenges. We've watched them, but they aren't necessarily applicable to our project being an open pit project. And there's a pretty good workforce in the Yukon. I don't think anybody could have predicted COVID as a startup build problem. And I guess maybe we should, though, because now that pandemics have been around, we might see some more. But on the technical side, from the Victoria Gold builds, specifically, if it's a heap leach project we're going to build, there's a lot that we can learn from there, just about things that they had to change and upgrade from their planning. In terms of, infrastructure, we have a lot of benefit from the infrastructure that they already put in. So some of that will, just be additive for us.
And then another question that I had is, you have a couple potentially obvious buyers in the region. How could you foresee Banyan Gold's deposit fitting within their future plans? Is this strictly a takeover play as you now have enough resources to form a standalone future operation? Like, how are you looking at kind of the future of Banyan and scenarios of how that could play out?
Sure. For the Aurmac project, I think the best value for shareholders is to maintain that optionality. Yes, we have two acquirers behind us, and it might fit in their mine plans based on and their production profiles, as well as simply adding resources, which all of the larger mining companies are looking to do that, to grow and put ounces back on the book. As soon as you're mining, you're using up ounces, and it's a declining balance. So, and many of them haven't done exploration. But I think Banyan could be a standalone from what we're seeing. Somewhere this district will eventually have a mill somewhere. We've seen that there's enough other deposits which are coming on or growing that potentially will need that. So I think that adds value. I'm not going to build a mine. I would gladly replace myself when and if Banyan is going to be the one moving it forward into production. I honestly think there's enough people looking around that's a pretty low probability scenario compared to the various buyout options. And, I think this is a district. There could be others that are larger companies looking to consolidate the district and looking at 1, 2, or more companies to put the story together. So I think maintaining optionality, just like in metallurgy, don't go in with a closed mind. Keep all options on the table, because that's how you get the most value. And going to Beaver Creek next week. So, talking to a lot of people, I'll certainly get a really interesting temperature of what people are thinking and who's interested and what shareholders are saying.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, one of the major themes that we're seeing right now is M&A. I think you're going to see a lot more of that, both at the producer level as well as at the junior and pre-development project level. So hopefully we'll see some shareholders finally making some decent money out there in the space. Then just last question, and again, thanks for participating in this. I know that your region was somewhat affected by fires. As you mentioned, Eagle was evacuated. Can you just give us an update on the fires in the region, how you were affected, other operations in the community?
There were disruptions and some evacuations, like the Eagle Gold Mine and the community of Mayo. And there were quite a few fires around. We were a little bit interrupted. We shut down our drilling a couple 100 meters shorter, just because it made sense to not be bringing people into an evacuation alert zone and to help out on the fire, put a couple dozers on, helping to protect roads and power lines and things like that. Really fortunate in the Yukon, particularly the community of Mayo. That was a scary fire. Communities evacuated are always it's definitely gut wrenching while you're waiting. So nothing damaged, though. There's no fire. The fire they're pretty much all now. Winter's coming now and fall. We're seeing the leaves change color. So less fire risk for sure. Victoria Gold, I know, they were back up in full swing as soon as they were able to get back on site, which was pretty quickly because many of them were staged fairly close by. So I think, long-term, we're pretty fortunate that the long-term impacts are likely to be negligible, except for in people's minds. And we spent a bunch of time fire smarting all of our camps and things like that, which is just a smart thing to do anyway. So it's an investment in being protected when the next one comes.
Yeah, we're glad to hear the situation's improved, and hopefully next year we have less fires in those areas. But yeah, thanks, Tara, for participating and for donating and for updating us. Like, it's surprising how much you've accomplished since we first met in 2020. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Hopefully you start to get some rewards in the market. And good luck to you next week.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.